Ooh, we're live.
Oh,
perfect.
Hi.
Cool. Hey, hi. Wonderful. Before we get into who you are and a little bit of your background, I want to give us time for people to start tuning in, given it's Saturday at 3:30 in the afternoon. But while we're waiting for people, tomorrow is Mother's Day, and I'm kind of curious, yeah. Riggs, what you got planned for Mother's Day? You going to do anything?
Well, my mother that lives here at the house is the mother of my dog, Sam.
Okay.
Who's not really a mother at all. It's just my wife. So we're not doing anything here, but we sent my mom flowers. She lives down in South Carolina. So that's probably about the best that we could do. I found a way to support a local business down there, though. So we called a florist in South Carolina and had them deliver it to my mom. And the old lady that took the order was so happy. She was like, "You're in Wisconsin? Oh."
I believe it. She sounded just like that.
She did. She was like,
she's close to retirement, so
in Wisconsin there. She had a super sweet little Southern Belle voice. So we had some flowers sent to my mom. I always call my grandparents on Mother's Day because I feel like since I still have them around, I like to have as many excuses as I can to call or text both of my grandparents because I'm still fortunate enough to have them both, and I like to talk to them as much as I can. So, and then my wife's mother, we always just have either a FaceTime call or something with her. She's not really a fan of. She doesn't like getting gifts, and she doesn't buy into you don't need to get me anything. It's fine, sweetie. Just call me. So
that's nice.
That's all we're doing. How about you? What are you doing for Mother's Day? Your parents are local, right?
Yeah, my parents are local. So we are actually going to be doing, or I'm going to basically buy dinner for them. My mom and dad, I mean, dad gets the consolation prize, but whatever my mom wants, basically, which is typically like Olive Garden or something, I'll just order it probably at 2 o'clock to make sure that I can get an order in. Pick it up at 5, go over, have dinner with them. And, I think my parents are more about experiences as well instead of like material possessions. Yeah. So it kind of works out that way.
My mom's usually the same way. And I really wanted to go and see her this year, but thanks, Corona.
Yeah. I like to check in on my parents like once every 3 weeks. And we're right about at that 3 weeks period. So I don't see them all the time, but enough to kind of, they're a little older, but they won't admit it, sort of thing, You're
unemployed right now, so you doing literally anything is amazing for them. So
hey, I know. Let them remember that next year when I don't do anything and have a job that pays well. All right, so let's jump into our self-care weekend sort of Facebook Live. Today's topic, we're talking about suicide prevention. I got Regs here from the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention's Wisconsin chapter, but I'm going to let you introduce yourself, kind of what do you do for the organization, and a little bit about yourself.
Well, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention has 75 chapters across the country, and there is one here in Wisconsin. We have one area director. Her name is Gina Orlando. So there's really just one paid employee for the foundation. And then everything else is 100% volunteer-based. Our entire board is volunteer-based. I'm the co-chair of the board, so I kind of help oversee programs that we do, our community outreach, our advocacy, our walks that we do, our Out of the Darkness walks that we do every year, which are getting more difficult. And I'll talk about that more as we get along and how you can get involved with them still. I also help out with outreach as well for supporting people that have been affected by suicide. We do a program called Healing Conversations, which I think is a really great program. I can talk about that later as well. Once we start talking about the programs that we offer, if we want to get there. But we're all volunteer based. We try to have as big as a reach as we can across the state of Wisconsin. And I got involved with this probably 2017, I want to say, when I lost my uncle to suicide in July of 2017. And that fall, I was looking for something to do with mental health or suicide prevention. So I'm Googling, looking for stuff to do, and I come across the Out of the Darkness walk. And that's a walk that we do, I think over 500, well more than, don't quote me on the number, but a lot of Out of the Darkness community walks. AFSP hosts a big national Out of the Darkness walk, which unfortunately this year was canceled, but that's a Out of the Darkness walk that literally starts at night and goes literally out of the darkness is what I mean. So you start walking at 10 o'clock at night, and it's a 16-mile walk. So by the time it ends, the sun is coming up. It's significant of a new day. It's kind of cool, the Out of the Darkness thing. So that's our biggest fundraisers and kind of our cornerstone events that we do throughout the year, in addition to all of our programs. So I oversee all of that for the state of Wisconsin and kind of make sure to keep us on track with, keeping the conversation moving forward. We have a thing called Project 2025 that we are in charge of, which is reducing the suicide rate by 20% by the year 2025, which is a bold goal, but it's something that we think we can achieve with conversations and programs like this and people like you continuing to raise awareness. It's always good. So that's what I do, and I'm the co-chair of the board. So I'm on a chair, but I'm never bored, and I never sit, which is ironic. Because
you're sitting right now.
I know.
Yeah. Oh, I see you've got the HA hoodie.
I did.
What's that HA hoodie? That's
HUH, How's Your Head?
Yes.
It's a local company that sent me, they saw me doing my mindful minutes that I've been doing throughout Mental Health Awareness Month. I'm just doing like a 1-minute quick spotlight on anxiety or depression or eating disorders. Today was talking to your children about mental health. And they saw my segments and said, hey, can we send you a hoodie? I was like, hoodie? You mean the official uniform of the 2020 quarantine? Yes.
Yeah, that's very true.
It is.
Laura checked in and said hello. Hey, Laura. If anybody is interested in joining in on this chat, you can always leave a comment. Let us know how you're doing and any questions that you have for Riggs around suicide prevention and awareness, and maybe where to get support and all that sort of stuff. Feel free to comment. Yeah. And if you're uncomfortable with that, you can always DM us and we can get back to you later.
Laura is actually, I know Laura is in psychology. She's in the mental health field. So she's good about reaching out. I do a mental health check-in. Have you seen the ones on social media with the little hearts where you say like how you're feeling today? Kind of a check-in to I'm doing great. For red is I'm doing great. A yellow heart means something else. An orange heart might mean I need immediate help. I need someone to reach out. And she's good about reaching out to people on my page and saying, hey, how are you? So I think that's really important during this time, is checking in on people. Just simple things like asking how people are doing. It sounds so easy, but it literally can change someone's day.
Yeah. I had somebody tell me a week back to reach out to 3 people that I hadn't talked to in 6 months or more. And just reach out and say hello. And if you have somebody in that group that doesn't respond, keep going until you hit 3 people that respond.
Yeah. That's a good thing to do
too. Yeah. And so how does the heart thing work? You just make a post saying, hey.
Yeah, I can pull it up for you real quick. I have it in front of me. Accessible on my notes feature. I wish I could share it with you. But checking in on your mental health. So a red heart is I'm great. A purple one is I'm, can you see this at all? Neat.
I think so.
See, kind of a little chart. Red would be I'm great. Purple, I'm okay. Green is I'm meh. Yellow, I'm hanging in there. Orange, I'm struggling. Blue, I'm not doing good. I need someone to check in on me. So kind of a good range of emotions. And I think we all experience a pretty wide range of emotions, especially during this. I have my ups and downs. I've had, luckily, a good couple weeks for me personally. So I had about a week where it was just a really devastating week, and I let my thoughts get the best of me. I think we can all get like that a little bit. But it's important to be mindful. That's been my word of the month, is mindful. Just aware of how you're feeling, aware of if you're getting into a really dark place. I know it's good to rely on other people to look for your signs, but knowing your own signs, I think, and you're a big advocate for that, JMatt, is knowing when you're starting to go down that path where you feel like, this could get treacherous. I could be getting into a situation where I might be in danger, or, I need some immediate help. I need someone to reach out to. When you have people that you can identify in your life that you can call in those moments, someone you can trust, a trusted friend, a trusted relative, someone that will be there and listen non-judgmentally, which is super key, because some people are intimidated by the conversation and just the topic alone of suicide. They go, suicide. I don't want to talk about that.
You can't talk about that. That's too taboo. And the fact that people aren't talking about it is why it's still so taboo.
Yeah. That definitely contributes to it, is the shame behind it as well. I mean, go back to like my uncle. When my uncle took his life, there were 3 different excuses at his funeral about how he died. There was nobody said it was a suicide. It was an accident. It was a health condition, and it was, I forget what the other one was. There were 3 different stories that were going around. about how he died. And that's what made me think, this is jacked up. Like, why can't we say what really happened?
Right. It's such, yeah. People want to tiptoe around it. Your mom was at the walk this year and kind of had such a powerful speech that she kind of mentioned, like, the older generation got so used to not talking about it that they could prevent a lot of suicides and struggles around mental health if the older generation would just be okay with talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. If more people were okay talking about it, we'd be in a better spot. Yeah. And if we're not careful, I feel like if we're not careful now, we could see a suicide rate increase during and after this pandemic, because if people don't know how to deal with their emotions. I mean,
now you're stuck in a room by yourself, maybe, or with a very small group of people that you're now having to address your mental health.
Yeah. Or maybe you don't have the opportunity to get out at all. You're stuck inside your house. You don't have friends, and you were already in a situation where you were isolated, and now it's even worse. So, and then I look at like first responders and healthcare workers now, people that are working in grocery stores, people that are having to go out to work right now. As opposed to wanting to go out to work, like they're going out and working so that people like us can stay home and stay safe. But there's people out there that are experiencing people being rude. There's a lot of people that are just a-holes out there. And they just have to take it on the chin, being a grocery store worker getting yelled at because they're out of bread. And
somebody's having a terrible day and they're taking it out on the essential workers.
Amber is 17. It's not Amber's fault. Amber works at Pick and Save for $7.25 an hour. Leave her alone. So I worry about the people that are going to be hit really hard by this, that are not mindful of how they're feeling. So the more that we can talk about it, the better.
Yes.
So people know that it's completely normal. I want to normalize the crap out of it. So it's just like we could talk about diabetes, and you're like, oh, diabetes. Well, that's when your pancreas isn't working well, and you have to give yourself insulin injections, and you might have a low blood sugar. I mean, that's a regular conversation that people would not bat an eye at. But when you start talking about, well, there was a mental health issue, and the guy had suicidal thoughts, and he started going down a downward spiral, and he unfortunately ended his life, everybody freezes up in the room. So this stuff is good.
Yeah. Maureen has a question for us. How can we find the pages for AFSP Wisconsin chapter? Do you want to field that? I'm going to put the answer up here for Instagram. Is it the same everywhere?
Pretty much. We don't really have a social media person, and it's kind of our accounts have been started throughout. People, different committee members. So for the most part, if you search out AFSP Wisconsin, you can find us, the Wisconsin chapter. It's that or some variation of that, AFSP Wisconsin, yes. But the AFSP website will actually connect you directly to our chapter that has all of our upcoming events, any programs that we're offering. Some of the programs that we offer that are around safe language about suicide and kind of troubleshooting when someone might be being in that situation. One of them is called Talk Saves Lives. And normally those are programs that we offer in like a group setting, almost like a lunch and learn. And obviously, since we can't do that now, we're offering a lot of those programs virtually. And I think it's a really cool way to be introduced to some of the programs that we offer at AFSP. So if you go to the website, just the afsp.org, you can find all of that there, because we're doing a lot of our programs virtually online, and we have a lot of conversations on our page. So yeah, that's where you can find us. Thanks for the question. Hope I answered it. Okay.
Updating this real quick. There we go. And I've got your website up there now too. And looks like Heather is checking in, as well as Brandy saying hello. So hello to all of them that are tuning in. Feel free to add your comments if you'd like to jump in the conversation as well. Let's talk about suicide in the form of like warning signs. What should people be looking out in their friends, family, anyone that they know, so that they can help when they start noticing signs?
That's an interesting question. And even when you look at all the signs now, some of the signs in those lists are things that we have no control over right now, like removing from social situations and isolation. We're already doing that now by way of the pandemic. So it's a lot trickier now to be able to virtually check in on somebody. So I think the best thing that we can all do right now is stay in constant contact with people that we are keeping an eye on, somebody that you think may have an issue, somebody that may have an underlying condition, someone that's maybe out of work, somebody that may be working as a frontline worker, somebody that's an essential worker, like nurses and everything. A lot of nurses are away from their families right now, and they can't be around their kids because they're constantly exposed to the virus and patients, and they don't want to spread that back to their family. So I think keeping a pulse on those people and just keep checking in on people, keep the conversation going, let them know that you're there for them, that you're there to be an ear. If you just need to get something out, you just need to vent right now, I'm here for you. I can just listen. That's all you need to do as a friend of someone who's in crisis, is just be willing to listen, because that person just really needs to talk out their emotions and their feelings and what they're going through. And they just need you to listen. And listening is one of the easiest things you can do, because all you have to do is be there and show empathy and just be there for the person. You can do it on FaceTime. You could do it on a phone call or over text message as well. Just let someone know that you were there to listen, and make sure they know that they can trust you as well with what they're telling you. Like, whatever you're telling me about what you're feeling, if it's anger towards somebody or a situation, that's confidential. It's just you and I. I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm not going to go and rat you out. Now, let your friend also know if you genuinely are afraid for their life, or you fear they're going to take their life, or they're in an imminent situation, you're going to reach out to somebody that can help, like a professional. The Suicide Prevention Lifeline is a great number to call. They can give advice for you if you're with a friend that's in crisis, or if you yourself are in crisis. A lot of people don't know that the line can be used for advice as well. Warning signs and behaviors. I mean, JMatt's kind of scrolling through our website right here. So a lot of these are difficult because they kind of go along with our regular day of life now, because sleeping too much or too little. I mean, that's something you yourself should be mindful of. I mean, you're going to be tired, but if you're sleeping all day, maybe there's something underlying that you don't know about. And there's still other ways to talk to therapists as well. I don't know if we can get into that at all. You probably will in one of your upcoming self-care Sundays. That's a big thing with you, is continuing your therapy journey, because you don't have to stop talking to people because you're in quarantine or in some sort of self-isolation. There's still apps out there that people can use. There's mindful apps. There's virtual therapy. There's support groups. I still host a support group for survivors of suicide loss, so we try to keep those going as well. There are support groups that are still operating right now. I feel like there's still a very strong conversation around mental health, but I think we need to keep going like this for people that are in these bad situations. If anybody seems to be acting maybe extremely to this situation, I don't know if they're overly scared or if they're overly sad about things. Maybe that could be another warning sign to look in on for people. Just really keeping in touch is the best way to do it now, and just trust your gut, trust your instinct with people. You know your friends, you know your family. Go with your gut. If you know that they need a little bit more of a push, and hey, let's talk right now, give them that little extra push. If you're feeling it in your gut's right, like, I don't know, 80% of the time. That's probably an incorrect statistic, but my gut's usually right. And I would rather go with my gut instinct and reach out to somebody than not. So
right. And with the topic of suicide, weigh in on this if you'd like. Asking them directly if they have a means to end their life, or if they're considering suicide. Those are kind of the questions you have to directly ask. And it's not, if you ask those questions, that you are the cause, you're going to trigger these thoughts. They're either already having them or they're not. So by directly asking, you can find out how severe the situation is.
You might ask that question, and that might trip their brain into going, no. I've talked to friends that are talking very desperate, and they're talking about things just aren't going my way, and I can't control this, and this is going wrong, and I just lost my job, and then this happened with this person. And I've asked them that question. Are you thinking about suicide right now? Are you seriously thinking about ending your life over this? Are you contemplating suicide? Mm-hmm. No. And then I could tell in my friend's head, he started thinking everything that was going on, as he was flushing it out, didn't warrant really as extreme as he was feeling right then and there. He was going down a thought spiral, like this shame spiral. Right. Everything was wrong and out of control, but they were things that he couldn't control himself. And I kind of talked to him about being able to worry about the things that you can control in life. And he was able to take a step back a little bit and using that, asking that word suicide is, you're not going to plant the thought. You're exactly right in that. You're not going to plant the thought in someone's head. If they're going to do it, they're going to do it. And that's unfortunate, but you can be that voice there to say, hey, are you okay? Let's talk about this. Let them get it out. A lot of times, most of the time, they just have to work through whatever it is they're going through at that moment. These are the Wisconsin suicide facts and figures. These are fresh for this year. According to this, our suicide rate in Wisconsin actually went down a little bit. As you see, I think there were 888 suicides in 2019.
Yep, 888.
Yep, but then the previous year, I believe it was 924. So a downward tick. We don't know if that is because of advocacy or we just don't know. And a lot of suicides go unreported, which is.
You'll never know the true statistic, but I think that's true with a lot of statistics out there. You never really know what the actual number is. You only know what's being reported.
Well, we don't, I mean, how many drug overdoses have we seen? There have been so many overdoses during the pandemic and even before this, and you can't classify an overdose as a suicide. You can't.
Right.
Unfortunately, you could know till the cows come home. You could know that I could know that this person was depressed and they said, I'm going to overdose, I'm going to do this, but they can't classify it legally as a suicide. So,
Brandy's got a question for us.
Who's that?
Brandy wants to know, do you feel people in the state will be honest if asked if they are in fact considering it?
If they're not honest with you, they'll start to be honest with themselves.
Yeah.
Because they'll hear you say that question and they'll put it into perspective in their own brain. So I think, yes, they will be honest as long as they know that you're that trusted friend that is there for them. Again, letting them know that they can trust you, that you're having a confidential conversation. I don't think if they're not going to be honest with you, they're probably going to hang up the phone with you and seriously contemplate. They don't need to do that. They don't need this permanent solution to a temporary problem.
What I'm curious about is teens. It is a somewhat common thing for teens to be considering suicide, for them to be depressed, especially if they're bullied in school or if they don't feel like they have any friends in school. And for teens, their perspective on life is so much more different than you and I, who have had a lot of life experience and know not everything lasts for a while. As a teen, you only have 13 to technically 19 years of life to base things on, and everything just moves slower. How do we talk to teens that we think might be suicidal? How do we support teens that have admitted to being suicidal?
I think it's good to just have honest conversations with those kids, with teenagers in general, and specifically with teenagers. The more honest you can be, the better. There's never one contributing factor to a suicide. It's always a combination of things. So looking into what else is going on in that teen's life. Maybe it's not just being bullied at school. Maybe there's also things going on at home. Maybe there's abuse at home. Maybe there's financial situations at home that you're not aware of. Be as honest as you can with them and open with them and ask them, as you would talk to an adult as well. Let them know your life experiences. It's hard to tell because you've been there before, JMatt. You were a teenager. You knew that you felt like that's the end of everything.
Yep.
These are all my friends right now. This is my life right now. And when it all comes down to a crash, I don't have any friends in high school. I'm not going to have friends in life. Well, it's just not like that. It's like high school is such a small fragment of your life.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you anything amazing out of high school, honestly. All of my best and greatest life experiences have been post-high school, post-teen years. And I think everybody has to go through those horrible teen years. I think if you can find embarrassing or upsetting or maybe real life situations from your teenage years that you can share with another teenager, I would say do that. I mean, I've talked to some teenagers before that are very upset, and I said, you know what I did? I had a moment in my life when I was in high school where I had a girlfriend that left me, and this was like the first love of my life, right? I'm an empath, so when I fall hard, and this is like my first real love. And when Sarah Latimer cheated on me in high school, I got really upset, and I was in a dark place. I was listening to Marilyn Manson. I was listening to music. I was writing dark poetry, like really dark poetry. But at the time, I was like, I'm really there's something wrong with me. But then looking back, I was dealing with my emotions in those positive ways. Was Marilyn Manson, is his music offensive to some people? Sure, but that was my outlet to deal with my emotions. Was it weird, the dark poetry that I was writing? Absolutely. I was writing some twisted stuff, but I was getting those thoughts out of my brain and onto a piece of paper. And it was much safer that way instead of keeping those thoughts inside of my own mind. So I've had conversations with teenagers about what I did to cope with my feelings. If you can't go out with friends, you don't need friends to write poetry in your room. You don't need friends to play the guitar in your room. You don't need friends to listen to music. You can do that on your own and deal with your emotions on your own if you need to. And there's positive ways to do that. Give them some good ideas for positive coping mechanisms. You might come with a new hobby out of it. Who knows? I had a poem published in the National Library of Congress. I couldn't find it. Yeah. They said it was published. I think it was a fake poetry contest, honestly. I think they took my $20 and ran. Because I went to the National Library of Congress for the AFSP Advocacy Day, and they said that they couldn't find it. So
that's a bummer.
They were liars. But if you're talking to teenagers about it, I say relate to them as much as you can with your past experiences as well, and just reinforce the fact that they got so much life ahead of them, and it gets so much better. It really does. It sounds cliche, but things get so much better out of high school. High school is just like this hurdle that you have to get through, and then you move on with your life, and life can really begin.
And I will say, from somebody that experiences it himself, teenage years to currently, it's I think people that are struggling with suicide and depression don't really want to be treated differently. You don't want to be handled with child gloves, if you will. You want to be treated like you were before people knew, and get checked in on and say, hey, how's your day going? How's this going? It's those that act differently that just make you feel like you're different, that something is actually wrong with you, and that kind of doesn't help. So as difficult as it can be to learn that someone in your life is suicidal, do your best to treat them normally.
Mm-hmm. Because the way that they're feeling is totally normal to them. So
yep,
you're right. Like down talking to them or handling them with white gloves or anything like that is probably just going to make them feel worse, and probably very ashamed of the way that they feel. And you don't have to feel ashamed for the way that you feel. Your feelings are valid.
The hardest thing for somebody to do when they are struggling is ask for help. And if the people around them that they've already asked for help or support from are already making them feel ashamed for feeling the way they do, it's even less likely that they're going to continue to reach out for help or come back to that person that's making them feel guilty for help in the future.
Yeah.
So if anybody reaches out to you for help around depression or suicide or mental health or really anything, they are showing you a lot of trust. So kind of take that as a compliment if somebody reaches out to you.
They're being very vulnerable in that moment. So Ashley, thanks for that comment. That's nice of you to say that.
Let's see, what else shall we talk about? Asking for help. What does that look like? We kind of touched on it a little bit, but I kind of want to go directly into it. What are some resources? Where can somebody go if they need help for someone they're concerned about, or even for themselves as a supporter?
Well, there's, of course, the big one, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-TALK, 1-800-273-8255. Did you know that there are 4 call centers in Wisconsin for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline?
I did not. I'm guessing Madison, Milwaukee, Green Bay, and Kenosha?
I think 3 of them are there's Waukesha. You know what? Can I share my screen?
I don't know, but you could send me a link in the private chat and I'll put it up.
Maybe I can do that.
I wish you could share your screen.
I really do. It says share screen on this, but I don't know if I can.
Does it? Try it.
It does. I do know that there are the 4 of them. Hold on.
We do a mad race to see if we can find it first.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no. I remember where it is. Here it is. Hold on. Desktop. AFSP stuff. Oh, there it is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's 4 of them. But
I'm curious now, but yeah.
We don't fund them. We do give them resources for that. So, here it is. Lifeline facts. Oh, excuse me. So, 4 call centers. There's one in Madison, one in Tosa, one in Wausau, and one in West Bend. 4 of them. which is interesting. And then these are from 2018. So there were 2.5 million calls to the Lifeline in 2018. 29,000 of those were from Wisconsin, which I thought was interesting. There's a lot of people calling that. And I think the number could go up even more. That number is there's also a veteran side of that as well. So if you are a veteran, there's a veteran specific number that you can dial to be let into that. I wonder if I can share these with you real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah,
and if not, you can always look up AFSP on Instagram, go to their website, all that sort of thing, find resources there.
Yep. But that's not just a number to call if you yourself are in crisis. I think we mentioned this earlier, but I think it's worth mentioning again is that you can call if you are worried about someone or you are in the room with someone that you're worried about, someone that has access to lethal means or anything like that. You can call that number and say, hey, let's call this number together. Let's do this together. Because that's another good thing to let them know, because they're not going through this alone right now. They've invited you into this situation and you're now a part of it. So let them know that we're going to do this together. Let's talk to somebody. I'm here for you. And as long as you need me, let's go through this together, and call that number and make the call for them. Sometimes it's difficult for them to actually pick up the phone and dial it. They think that they're admitting weakness by doing this. They're already in a very vulnerable state. So you doing that kind of lets them know that, you know, they're being supported and they're genuinely not alone right there in that moment. So there's the Lifeline, which is great. There's also the crisis text line. You can text hello or hope. There's a number of phrases,
variations
to that number, 741-741. That's for the more maybe person that doesn't want to talk to somebody right away, or maybe you're in a place where you can't talk, just to be connected to someone immediately who can start texting back and forth with you. So I know we're kind of in a texting society. I don't like when people call me. I'd rather be texted, but sometimes just text works better for people. So
I have 2 experiences with using the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. It's like an unfortunate to have to use it, but fortunate it exists sort of situation. The first time I had a friend maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I wasn't that close to him, but he knew that I was a mental health advocate, and he reached out to me saying that he was suicidal. He was considering taking his life, and he had the means to do so. So I called the number, and they kind of said, hey, is this friend somebody that you can go and check on? Do you feel safe and comfortable enough to do so? And lucky for me, I did. So I stayed with him until he passed out, and I basically just stayed silence with him as he was going through what he was going through. And I did that twice for him during his crisis, and was able to get him to a place where he was able to rebound from it. And it was talking to somebody on the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline that kind of gave me that clarity and the ability to know what to do in that situation. Had it been somebody that I wasn't close to or didn't feel that I could go and be safe around, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline will connect you with the local police department, and they will do a wellness check for you. And it can also be a situation where you meet the police at the person's location. You do the wellness check with the safety of the police there. They kind of do a survey of the situation, and then if they deem it safe and whatnot, you can stay there with your friend for a little while. Or if it really is as bad as it looks, then they can take the person to the emergency room or to some sort of inpatient care and allow them to get a 72-hour hold, a watch, and talk to professionals and therapists. And the other situation was I had a friend who really needed support. I was there with that person in the moment, and I knew that person was not going to make the call themselves. And we were trying to get this person checked into one of those 72-hour watches. It didn't end up being a 72-hour watch, but through the conversation with the hotline and talking with this friend, we were able to come up with an action plan that worked out best for that person. So it's a very helpful resource to use when you are trying to think calmly and rationally about a situation where you or the other person can't do that for each other.
And don't be afraid of your friend being mad at you either. I know some people will be like, I don't want them to be mad. I don't want them to think that I'm poking, prodding and asking questions I don't need to.
Yep.
2 things. Always assume that you're the only one to reach out to somebody. Always assume that you are the only person to reach out, because sometimes when you assume, oh, they're upset, people know people know he's depressed. People know that he's always sad. He's getting inundated with messages. Don't.
Yep.
Assume that you're the only one to reach out, and never worry about pissing someone off. Pardon my language. I don't know if that's bad to say.
Okay, we're good.
Don't worry about it, because I would rather you be upset with me for calling and checking on you, or upset with me for having the police come to your house and make sure that you're alive, than speaking at your funeral. You're doing your eulogy, and that's jarring to say, but that's exactly what it is. I would rather you be upset with me and maybe never talk to me again and still be alive than not.
Right. You don't want to have regrets in a situation of, oh, should I have reached out?
And you're still going to have that even if it does happen.
Yep.
It's happened to me. It happened when I lost a friend to suicide. It was a guy that we worked with, Jason.
Yep.
I remember him very well.
Yep.
I knew that he had depression. I knew that he had dealt with people close to him that had died from suicide. His fiance, he had a best friend. He was a big mental health advocate. He would check on me. He donated to our Out of the Darkness walk, and I knew that he was in a bad place. I knew it. So I checked in on him, and I lost touch with him a little bit. But then I saw a Facebook post from him one morning. I was at the radio station. It was incredibly troubling. I was texting his mom. I was calling his cell phone. I called the police, the local police, and he unfortunately took his life. But I was glad that I was at least proactive on that. And even I still worried, should I have reached out more? Should I have left work and gone to his house? You're always going to have those questions in the ripple effect of a suicide. You're always going to have that blame, that guilt, that I should have, would have, could have. But at the end of the day, even if you would have, should have, and could have done all those things, it still may have happened as well. So beating yourself up about that it's not bad. But knowing in your heart of hearts that you did try, you were truly there for that person, is something you can live with as well.
I would say if you have a friend who lost a family member to suicide, someone in their immediate family, take extra time with that friend. I believe there's statistics out there that show those that lose a family member basically increase the likelihood that that person will die by suicide in their future. Yeah. So don't even I'm not saying don't reach out immediately, like reach out right away, check in on them, of course, but check on them over months and years, because suicide isn't going to just happen right away. Most likely it's something that's going to eat away at somebody over time. And I think we often overlook those people that lost a direct family member to suicide and about how well they're doing. I lost a cousin to suicide, and I know that their parents, at least for years, thought about it daily of losing their son. And I know it's difficult. So it's one of those, it's in their back of the mind. You don't want to treat them any differently, but you want to be engaged with them. You want to make sure you're reaching out to them, because you never know who will and who won't. So
don't be afraid to ask about their loved one that died from suicide. Like, ask about him. Like, ask him to tell you a story about him. Like, what was one thing? Like, JMatt, was your cousin into sports? Did he play sports? Did he play video games? What did he do? Did you know him very well?
I didn't know him very well, honestly. I wish I knew him better. Sadly, I had just moved back to the state, and I was just starting to get to know him better. He was either just turned 21 or was about to, and I was like, oh, we'll go out more and whatnot. And we were starting to make plans to see each other and hang out more. And, well, it was a little too late, unfortunately, in the situation. And I kicked myself every now and then. And for somebody that didn't know him that well, looking back at my interactions with him the month of and the weeks before, there were those, that is a huge warning sign that I started noticing. He was talking to my uncle and myself about guns and whatnot, which I don't talk to my cousin that often, or didn't talk to my cousin that often, but it seemed like an unusual thing to be talking about just out of the blue. And that is a warning sign. If I had known him better, maybe it would have been more apparent. But yeah, it's hard not to blame yourself a little bit for those moments. It's like, if only I had a better relationship with the kid, maybe he'd still be here.
Yeah.
Ashley's got a comment here. I think it's important for survivors of those who lost their life to suicide to remember it is not their fault. It's hard, so hard, but so important. As someone who has lost people to suicide, I know this on a deep level, and it has taken years to accept.
Yeah, it's not your fault. And it's not, and that's some of the blame comes from the shame comes from suicide and the stigma around it. It's a sickness in the brain, you know, that's nobody's upset when someone dies from cancer. That's just, you think of, I compare suicide to cancer in the way that someone can have cancer and you can do everything you can to treat it. You can give it chemotherapy. You can start eating healthy. You can make it go into remission a little bit. And sometimes it comes back and still rears its ugly head and you end up dying from either cancer or a symptom of your immune system because of the cancer. But it can happen. And the same thing with mental health. If someone has depression that is that severe and it's going to happen, and it does happen, it's important to know it wasn't your fault. It was something that someone who's in that moment, that darkness, and ready to take their life, they don't know, they're not thinking about you. They're not thinking about what it's going to affect. They're just trying to turn off the hurt, trying to turn off the pain. And I don't ever want to have to be in that situation. I don't know what it's like, but that's not their fault. They didn't know what else to do in that situation. And it's not their fault and it's not your fault. It's just a really, really sad way to die. And it leaves such a horrible ripple effect behind. So checking in on all those people that are impacted by it afterwards is important. Friends, family members, all of them.
Brandy has an interesting question here because I think this is a very common one. It's, what do you think about those that say people who talk about suicide are attention seeking?
Attention seeking?
Yeah. Those that talk about suicide and whatnot, they just want attention. I've heard this a lot.
I've heard that. I've also heard that they're cowards as well. I don't know. Can you put those in the same category?
Sure.
Negative talk about suicide?
Yeah. Stigmas, if you will.
I don't really know. I've never really thought about that, honestly. I mean, I think always take it seriously. I think if it's a regular thing where it's like daily or weekly or monthly, maybe start asking honestly, like, what else is going on? Like, why are you craving this attention to yourself? Maybe start having a real conversation about why they keep bringing it up so much. Have they been hearing about it? Have they been reading about it? I don't know. Approach that person about it if you think that it's like that. But I think always take it seriously, always. And if it's a persistent thing where it's a pattern and it's starting to feel like a boy who cries wolf thing, go back to your gut again. I mean, if you feel like that in your gut, I mean, I wouldn't accuse them of that, but ask them questions that might lead them into thinking to the answer that you need.
I will say, going back to the warning signs, by the way, one of them, it does talk about it as like, if the person is talking about killing themselves, it doesn't directly say those that are joking about suicide. I do remember seeing that as a warning sign in other places, that those that joke about suicide and talk about depression and killing themselves is a warning sign. So for those that think, well, this person's joking about suicide a lot and it's becoming a really regular thing, that is a warning sign. Point blank, very simply put. As for somebody that has talked about suicide, and even as a teen, I was most comfortable displaying emotion through comedy and through humor. And I would joke about suicide to friends and whatnot to kind of see what their reaction on the topic was, and not being comfortable about talking seriously about it. And I think people at the time would view me as someone who is attention seeking. And for me as a teen, I was seeking attention in the form of help, and I didn't know how to ask for it when I was younger. So I think the way that teens are going to be asking for help around the topic of suicide is going to look a lot differently than someone who might be more mature and capable of having a serious conversation around the topic.
It's a great answer. You answered that better than I did.
I've heard it for the last 15 years. So I've thought about it a lot. And I think you talked about another negative sort of connotation around it. People are cowards or whatnot. Yeah. I've also had to deal with that when people learned I was suicidal, or they didn't know I was suicidal, but the topic would come up and people would just be like, yeah, people that kill themselves are cowards. And I would argue with that one as well, because if you truly knew what somebody was going through before they took their lives, I promise you they are anything but cowards. Likely they have been going through this for months, if not years. It is a mentally exhausting sort of situation to be in, to daily, hourly, minutely be considering ending your own life It is an irrational thought. It is something that no one should ever want to have to go through, but to have to deal with it for as long as they did is anything but cowardly. Hopefully those people will understand over time that talking about suicide, asking for help, doesn't make them weak. It makes them so much stronger and can help out. But you see it all the time where celebrities like Robin Williams, would you consider Robin Williams a coward? He took his life, but I wouldn't ever think of that man as a coward.
Would you consider the 22 veterans or formerly 22 veterans who die by suicide every day cowards? No, those people are courageous. They went out, they fought for our country. They did something that I could never do myself. No, it's in fact, yeah.
The creator of the Semicolon Project, where the tattoos, I'm sure people would know, it's the semicolon, and they talked about how your life's not over, it's about to continue sort of thing. The creator of that died by suicide. It's people that are mental health advocates that are the forefront of suicide because of their experiences. Unfortunately, we're losing those people too. It is a very difficult thing to go through. And with it being such a leading cause, I just would hope that people that do think those that die by suicide are cowards, I would hope that they would change their mind around it, because considering them cowards or attention seeking, I think is what's preventing people from getting help.
Yeah.
We got Lee McNab checking in. Hey, friends. Been there, done that. With all of this, proud of you talking about this. Definitely game to talk on your anxiety, especially in a couple of weeks. Thanks, Lee. I'm actually looking for people to talk about anxiety on May 31st. So
Lee's a good one. Lee has Irish triplets, by the way. So her anxiety's on another level. She having one baby and then getting immediately pregnant with twins and having it all within the same year. So
and then COVID-19 hits. So yeah. I think Lee's got a lot to add on that conversation.
I think so too. And she'll probably will be there with snacks.
Oh, well, that's exciting. Brandy asks, what helped you most overcoming feeling suicidal? Therapy. That's easiest answer for me is talking to a professional about it. When it was bad, and this was probably when I lived in Madison, I met with a therapist every other week. It was a regular sort of occurrence, maybe weekly even. I can't remember. It's been a while. But when it was good, I only met with a therapist once a month, and it was just kind of a check-in. I also had a psychiatrist. Yes, psychiatrists are able to prescribe drugs, and I was medicating. So, yeah.
Psychologist will listen. Psychiatrist will prescribe.
Yep.
And usually, if you have both, they'll work together, and they can. Yes. Kind of, if they're in the same provider circle, they can do that.
Yep.
The other thing about therapy I want to say is I think therapy gets such a bad rap sometimes. Like people think I don't really need therapy because I'm not that bad. But how many? Aaron Rodgers has a football conditioning coach. Every athlete has a strength and conditioning coach. They all have coaches. Even professional athletes have people above them that train them to help them be better. So why would you not want to do that with your body's most important organ that literally functions all of your breathing, your heart rate, everything, your actions, your thoughts? This is the most important organ in your body. I don't know. What you think? What's more important, your heart or your brain?
I think my brain's the most important thing.
I would guess so.
Yeah, that's a huge part. Right. You need your heart to live, but you need your brain to live too.
You do.
You need them both, but I'd like to have a sound mind.
Yeah. No? So it's such an important organ. There's so much that can be troubleshot on the front end. If you are careful and you see therapy, seek it out now. Even if you just go once a month. I see a therapist once a month right now because I feel like that's a good check-in for me about how often I need to go and get my engine looked at, my brain. And sometimes it's just flushing out a couple things, and usually I'm fine. I've gone to therapy on good days. You don't have to be in crisis to go to therapy. You don't have to be on the verge of a breakdown to go into therapy.
Yep.
Sometimes you can go in on a good day and realize that there's something underlying that you can help troubleshoot. Don't be afraid of therapy. Don't.
I had a therapy session on Tuesday, and it's no secret that I have a little bit of mild depression right now, given everything that's going on. I think a lot of people are depressed right now, but I had some positive things happen, and I shared them with my therapist, and my therapist point blank said, "Hey, thank you for sharing the positives too. Not a lot of my clients are ever talking to me about the positive. It's always the negative. And if you share the positive with your therapist, she can use that kind of as a baseline to judge your negative feelings around and kind of say, well, you had this good thing, and they can remind you and support you that way too. Yeah. There is huge benefit to that. And for therapy, if you've ever gone and said, I didn't like my therapist, unless it's court mandated, which isn't that big of the population. I know it's popularized in movies that way, but you have the control. If you don't like your therapist, if you're not meshing well, basically you can go find somebody else. There's so many therapists out there. Find somebody that fits you better.
Capitalism, baby.
Yeah.
We've had that too. I had a therapist once that was not that great. And you just move on and say, hey, you know, this isn't working for me. I'm going to find someone else. They're not going to take offense to it.
Yep. Agreed. I want to switch topics. I know we were pretty much at our time, and I want to respect your time as well, especially given that it's the weekend. But I want to give you a chance to talk about two things for AFSP Wisconsin. You had mentioned Healing Conversations. Do you want to touch on that for a little bit?
Healing Conversations is a program where if you lose someone from suicide, you can reach out to Healing Conversations, and somebody who is in that same path will reach out to you and be able to talk to you about the situation, because a suicide is a death that's way different than anything else. It's different than losing someone to a car crash, or someone to cancer, or someone to heart disease, or someone from old age. It's just a different type of death that you deal with, and there are different emotions that you go through, and the grieving process is different for everybody. So Healing Conversations will put, let's say a mother who lost a son to suicide, another mother who had lost a son would also then reach out to that mother, because you may have questions being the mother. You're going to have different feelings of guilt as a mother. You're going to have different ways that you're blaming yourself as a mother, and being able to talk to someone who has been there that can empathize with them and has walked that path already and recovered from that path and their whole journey. It's just an amazing program that I think needs to be publicized more. It's called Healing Conversations. That's at our website, afsp.org. It's a fantastic program. And we have lots of people around the whole country that we know that have had loved ones that have died from suicide, and they're now through their grief process, or evolving in their grief process, and they love reaching out to people where it's still raw and still new. So that's Healing Conversations for you. Okay.
Thank you for that. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the walk that you guys do each year. I know yours is coming up in a few months, assuming we kind of get to a point where we can kind of organize with hundreds of people in one space. Do you want to touch on that? Yes.
The Out of the Darkness Walk is October 11th this year at Veterans Park, and it's still planning to go ahead. We're still planning on doing it if we can. I'm not sure how it's going to work out with social distancing. One thing that we did was with our campus walk from Madison was we did a virtual walk. So we still had the date, we still did fundraising. And then on that day, everybody went out on our Facebook Live and just did videos of them doing their own walk of solidarity. Because the Out of the Darkness walks, they're not competition walks. They're not 5Ks. They're not, there's no bibs. There's no times or anything like that. It's all done in memory. It's more of like a big community group hug is what I call it. Yep. So even if we can't all gather and walk together, we will still find a way to all connect together, even if it does have to be virtually, and still make the walk happen. So there's not just the Milwaukee Out of the Darkness walk. There's one in Walworth County. There's one up in the north side of Wisconsin as well. All of those can be found out there at our website. It's afsp.org/Wisconsin. So you can find a walk near you if you're somewhere outside of the Milwaukee area, but we'll still be there for our community, because there's still people losing loved ones to suicide that still need support. And that's what we do, is we bring hope to those that have been affected by suicide with AFSP.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us today on your Saturday, an off day, if you will, to talk about suicide prevention and awareness. If you guys want to follow AFSP Wisconsin, you can do so on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, anywhere that they are at. If you want to see more about their walk and whatnot, afsp.org/Wisconsin. For those of you checking out, this is going to be a weekly series going back to Sundays. We only did it today on a Saturday because tomorrow is Mother's Day, and I didn't want to try to get people to come in when they should be FaceTiming with their parents. Next week, Sunday, May 17th, I'm going to have Tiffany Beneke come. She's going to talk about therapy in NAMI Waukesha chapter. Then the following Sunday, right before Memorial Day, I've got Dan Newberry, who is a friend of Riggs. He is with Lift for the 22. He does a lot of PTSD awareness and depression and whatnot with that. And then on Sunday, May 31st, it is going to be on the topic of anxiety. I have a psychologist who's going to be a part of that. I just have to confirm details with her. And I would love to have other people that experience anxiety be a part of the chat as well, so that we can hear from a professional as well as somebody that is experiencing anxiety. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So the goal is to have this series last every Sunday of the month. And if it continues to go well and there's other topics you would like to see featured, I'd like to feature more in the future. Feel free to DM me and let me know what topics you'd like to see featured in the future. And if you have any guests that you'd like to see come on and talk about any issues. But other than that, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for asking questions, sharing your experiences around such a taboo topic, honestly. And the more that we talk about suicide and depression and mental health, the more the stigma around it will go away, and those that are experiencing mental illness will ask for help and put their health first. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you to Riggs once again, and we'll see you on the internet.